Hey, this is John Carlos, and I am very excited to review for you guys the Sideshow exclusive version of the Hot Toys Marty McFly figure from Back to the Future Part 2. Ever since Hot Toys made the first Back to the Future Marty McFly figure, we've all hoped they would make figures from Back to the Future Part 2. And as someone who saw Back to the Future Part 2 in theaters when he was 8 years old and has loved the movie ever since, having this figure on the tabletop makes me very happy. I am mostly really happy with how it turned out. One little thing I have a gripe with is the edge of the shirt here. As you can see, they just pretty much cut the fabric off. There is no like stitching or tailoring to the edge of it. It's just fabric that just sort of ends, and you can see how kind of uneven the little things are there. I have a feeling over time this could fray if you don't take care of it properly. And I'm just confused because they can stitch like a collar, but they can't just like fold that over and then like sew the back end and make it like a nice clean edge of a shirt. I don't know. I just feel like that's really sloppy and kind of lazy for Hot Toys, for a company that usually has so much attention to detail. Speaking of attention to detail, I mean, just look at this jacket. Look at the texture of it. Look at texture, and it looks good. It looks just like how it does in the movie. One thing I find interesting, I was curious how they're going to handle the sleeves, because in the movie they are kind of like a weird rubber that bunches in the middle. Would that rubber actually bunch and then fold? I don't know if that would work at such small dimensions. And Hot Toys realized in this sort of sizing it wouldn't. It's like a sculpted bunching, so you can't unsnap that top piece and let it all accordion out like Marty Jr. But this looks good. It reads good, so I think that they did the smart decision there, because I think in this size, if you try to make that rubber accordion, it would look weird. It wouldn't. It would bunch up too big, and I like the little folds there that give it sort of a natural, not fabric, but the way it would hang, you know, as it does in the movie. Again, the texture on the back here is really great. Here's a closer look, just so you can see all the little dots, the little ribbing all over it. The edge of the jacket looks good. The little red dots on it look good. I like the cuffs. The pockets on the jeans are good, as far as, you know, kids in the future who fold their jean pockets out. Well, actually, they all come out that way. He has to untuck his. Looks good. It reads good. The jeans, well, they read like basic jeans, so that's fine. Nothing to complain about there. Let's talk about these shoes, though. Like the previous Marty figure, Nike did not license out the swoosh, but these shoes look awesome. The little section in the back looks good. The little plastic part there. I'm really happy with how this turned out, even though the front of the shoe does not say Nike on it. The power lace element is well sculpted. Here's the bottom look at the shoe, which has magnets in it, which connect to the magnetic hoverboard, which we'll do later. First, though, we gotta talk about this sculpt. Come on. That looks great. It's a new sculpt, not the same one as before that we had from Back to the Future Part 1. I like his serious face. I like his eyebrows. I like the positioning of his mouth. Like his lips read good. I got nothing but raves here, people. It's very dramatic looking. It's kind of badass and serious. I like the sculpt of his hair. I mean, there's no denying whatsoever that this is Michael J. Fox. It is a great sculpt. It's a great likeness. Here's just a look at some of his hair in the back. But from every angle, this totally reads like Marty McFly. There have been some other figures in the past that people could nitpick about, you know, whether they got the chin of this or the nose of that. But this totally, 100%, Michael J. Fox. The skin reads good. I like the eyeballs. Everything about this is great. So here's a look at the hoverboard, which, you know, does not say Mattel on it, because I guess they didn't want to offer their license to that. Also, the hole in here doesn't go as deep as it does in the movie. It's just sort of a little mild indentation with a black hole. And the little dotted decal, like the reflective surface of this, which, you know, you can't replicate in such a small form, but they attempted to with little dots, but it's not lenticular and light based. Anyway, that pattern is not going along the edge of the board. They just opted for a silver kind of paint, which I guess is fine because it's such a tiny detail to try to get into that size, and if you want to use a sticker for it, it's such a tiny sticker, it'd be pretty much impossible. But the hoverboard font looks good. The way they handled the sticker reads good. The design looks great. The bottom of the board looks good. And yeah, like I said, it's got a little magnetic piece in the front, and there's a little piece in the foot thing. The foot thing I wish was a little bit looser so it slid over the shoe more as it stands. either side you put it on, the foot won't go all the way in, but still you can get the other foot to match onto the board pretty good in two little spots. Also, if you care, this thing does swivel a bit. It's a little tight, but it does move, so that's good. Alright, now the figure comes with relaxed palm hands, but it also comes with a pair of grip hands, a pair of special grip hands for gripping the hoverboard, a secondary like left angled grip hand, and lastly a left like wide palmed hand. But it also comes with, and this is what makes it a Sideshow exclusive edition, the little remote gun from Wild Gunman. That's the arcade game in the Cafe 80s. This is a nice touch. And the details on it, not bad. Like, it's kind of busted up like it's a, you know, a 30-year-old video game. So there's some wear and tear on that. So that's a nice touch. What was surprising to me, though, was that it comes with an additional pair of hands for gripping the gun. I mean, it makes sense, but on the Sideshow website, it didn't list these hands. Like, they counted 8 hands. This makes 9 and 10. This one, obviously, for gripping the gun. But this one is also, in theory, for gripping the gun, but the finger placement's a little bit different. I like the idea of like spinning it all twirly-whirly there like that. But nice touch. Speaking of hands, we also get you know, a set of additional wrist pegs. But we also get this sports almanac, and it's cool because it actually has little pages in it with like little sports statistics. And just like in the movie, this outer thing is like a little dust jacket, and there is an actual almanac underneath the dust jacket, so that is a very nice little detail. It's what Hot Toys does. Also, we have the bag from the Blast from the Past store, and you can manage to like wedge this into the bag, so that's great. We also get this little bottle of Pepsi. Very simple but effective, and yeah, that top does not come off. At least I don't think it does. We also get this little wristwatch, you know, the little Casio calculator watch. And we get this, the newspaper, the USA Today, with the Griffin Gang version of the headline story. What's neat about this is it is a full newspaper. Well, not full, but it's got a secondary set in the back there, like 2 separate pieces. And there is stuff on the inside of both. So some fun little details in there. But yeah, very, very fun accessory. We also have this accessory, the footwear case that his shoes come in the movie. It's a fun accessory. In theory, you could take the shoes off the little foot pegs and put them in there, but then he'd, you know, have no feet. But still, the fact that this slides open and everything, it's a nice accessory. Lastly, well, second to lastly, because we're going to get to the figure stand in a moment, but second to lastly, we've got the hat and the alternate set of hair. Grammatically, that makes no sense. But the alternate hairpiece, because you'd want this to fit on properly so it looks good and not just resting on top of his normal head of hair. So the fact that they thought ahead to include this is a nice touch. The actual hat, though, is one of the few things that isn't blowing me away. The actual sculpt of the stitching that goes along it is great. I like the wrinkle of it. But that kind of, well, it's not iridescent, but whatever that kind of color scheme is that's in the movie that it kind of reacts to the light, you can't replicate that in this little form, so they had to paint it. So I get that you're not going to nail it, but this really does read a little too metallic and not, I don't know. This is a hard one to get right, but this color scheme reads a little weird to me. Lastly, we've got the figure stand, which comes in 3 pieces. The top little C-clamp with a spring-loaded little arm there that connects to the bendy arm, and that arm plugs into and screws into the base, which has a nice little watery surface that looks like the lake, decorative lake outside the courthouse, and it's got, you know, the name and the title on the front there. What's cool about this base is since it's got the bendy arm clamp, you can position Marty above the surface of the water so it looks like he's hoverboarding over the water outside the courthouse. That's a nice touch. You have to bend the arm considerably because if it's bent like straight up, if it's not bent and it's like straight up, then he would be hovering really far above the water. But here, you bend it and, you know, he's only just a few inches, and that really works. And then also the fact that he's suspended, you can, you know, bend his legs in whatever little position you want, as long as you get the hoverboard to stay, which right now, hey, there we go. Anyway, you get the idea. Bend the legs, position him however you want. Now I'm just going to take his hair off and put on the alternate hair, which is some serious hat hair, just so you guys can see how he looks with the hat on. And yeah, looks really damn good. So here he is with the arcade gun in his hand. I gotta say, it looks pretty good. Although I would like to point out that the rubber of the jacket, gets all bent and wobbly, and I would worry about it being bent over long periods of time, so maybe just for a little bit, but I'm going to keep my jacket sleeve straight. I tried to roll the jacket sleeve back a bit so I could show off the watch a bit more, but the cuff is solid and really tight against the arm. It only moves back barely 1/8 of an inch. But still, the watch is visible. It just goes over where the wrist peg is, so the fact that you can see it bodes well if you want to put him in the, the movie poster pose. So one little thing worth noting is this hoverboard is kind of heavy considering, the kind of soft rubber that this hand is made of. If you kind of drop it down to his side, sometimes, the hoverboard just drops right out. I recommend having the figure grip the hoverboard with both hands. It offers a little bit more support if you plan on displaying the figure holding the hoverboard. Little nitpicks I have with the figure include the ankle joints. First of all, I'm glad there are ankle joints because I figured there wouldn't be any kind of articulation points there. You would just plug the legs into the shoes and that was it. But you do get a little bit of mobility. I just wish there was a little bit more, but considering the height of the shoes, I get why that is not possible. Still, those ankle joints do help stabilize the figure a bit more than just relying on the knee joints when it comes to balancing out a top-heavy figure. My top right joint at the leg joint right there at the waist is a little loose. He tends to want to do the splits very easily. The thigh and ankle joints are minor nitpicks. This figure is awesome otherwise. It's worth pointing out that the almanac, the bag, and the newspaper all fit perfectly into his angled left grip hand. The standard right and left grip hands can hold the Pepsi bottle, and that's about it. There's not much else for these grip hands to grip. This figure, though, is awesome. As a fan of Back to the Future Part 2 and as a fan of Hot Toys, I am very satisfied with how it turned out. The only way this figure could be any better is if the shirt, was tailored at the edge so that it wouldn't slowly curl up over time, which I think will happen. And it'd be cool if the Nike swoosh was on there. Otherwise, this figure is outstanding. So thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate you taking the time. And if you want, follow me on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff, whatever.